Hello listeners, welcome to the first program in our series, Let's Learn Business Studies, which is produced for grade 10 and 11 learners and anybody else who has an interest in this subject. My name is Ms. Kambonde. Today, we'll learn about difference between private sector businesses and public sector businesses. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. And don't forget to take part in our quiz at the end of the program.
Up to the sky, jump to the sky.
For a long time now, I've been wondering the difference between businesses in the private sector and those in the public sector. Densia, would you perhaps have any knowledge of them?
That has been my challenge too, Messi. I usually get confused between the two terms.
Well, let's wait. I hope Ms. Shafashike will help us today.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
The Namibian economy is made up by different sectors that comprise businesses which provide the same or similar products. Therefore, today we are going to discuss the difference between private sector businesses from public sector businesses.
Wow, this really excites me. I've been wanting to know about these terms as they have been troubling me a lot.
That has been my problem too, Messi. What is the difference between these two?
Okay, when a person is talking about private sector, he is talking about a sector that is made up by the businesses that are owned, funded, and also controlled by the private individuals or maybe a group of people. All these businesses in this sector established in order to make profit.
So, Miss, does it mean that private sector businesses are not part of the government?
Yes, Macy's, you are correct. Privately owned businesses are not owned or controlled by the government. Those are businesses that are owned by private individuals. In addition to profit, private-owned businesses are also aimed to survive, business growth, and to add value to their product.
Oh, what are the examples of the businesses in private sector?
As said before, that some businesses in this sector are owned by individuals or group of people. Good examples are such as sole traders, partnership, public limited companies, private limited company, and close corporations.
Oh, so now I know. As long as the startup capital is contributed by the individuals, the business belongs to the private sector.
You're right, Macy. But what are the businesses in public sector?
Good question, Densia. The public sector is made up by businesses that are owned, funded, and managed by the government. These businesses are aimed to provide essential services to the general public or to the society at affordable prices, if not for free. Furthermore, these businesses are also aimed to break even instead of making profit, as well as keeping people at jobs.
Ah, and Miss, if it's possible, are there any examples of the businesses that operate in a public sector in Namibia?
Yes, Macy. We have businesses such as NBC, that is Namibia Broadcasting Corporations. NamWater are also part of that, Agribank, and many more.
Oh, that was very informative. Today I've learned that the private sector is owned by individuals with no government interventions. These businesses aim for profit maximization, growth, and survival. The public sector, on the other hand, is either owned by the government to offer essential services to the public instead of making profits. For example, businesses in public sector include NamPower, NamPost, NamWater, etc.
Up to the sky, jump to the sky.
Now, that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Explain how businesses that operate in the private sector differ from those businesses operating in the public sector. This program was written by Ms. Shafashike. So until next time, take care.
Up to the sky.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the second program in our series, Let's Learn Business Studies, which is produced for grade 10 and 11 learners and anybody else who has an interest in this subject. My name is Ms. Kambonde. Today, we'll learn about the sources of finance. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of all the important points. Do not forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program.
Up to the sky, jump to the sky.
All businesses, regardless of their types or their sizes, need finances in order to provide goods and services to their customers. At the end of this program, you should be able to, number one, identify the main needs for funds and how such needs can be met. Second, identify and comment upon the main sources of private and public sector finance. The third one, you should be able to explain the main ways of seeking finance from different sources of finance.
Oh man, I really want to start up my business, but I just do not know where to get the money from, Dancy.
Brilliant. Let's ask Miss Shafashike for her inputs.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
Macy and Dancy, please sit down. What are you talking about?
Sorry, miss. We were actually discussing about starting up my own business, but I do not know where I can get money from to achieve my dream.
Macy, please. There are many different sources of finance available. Come on.
Thank you, Dancy. All right, class. That's a good way to introduce our discussion for today, which is the source of finance. There's no business that can operate successfully if it does not have enough funds. So, to manage the business effectively, funds are extremely important for any business to sustain. Let us learn the sources of funds.
Oh, this is going to be interesting because I know that there are two main sources of funds. We have internal sources of funds, which is the money obtained from inside or within the business itself, and also external sources of funds, which involves the business seeking money from elsewhere, such as loans.
Okay, so businesses have wider choices of where to obtain money from, but what are the different methods of sources of finance?
You are correct, Dancia. The internal source of funds includes retained profit, selling of unwanted asset, own capital, as well as running down stock. Those are the internal funds. And these funds cannot be paid back. It's permanent capital. Therefore, no interest is charged. However, the money may not be enough for the needs of the business.
But miss, what about ways of seeking external sources of finance?
Indeed, the owner or a business may choose to use external sources of finance. This type of finance include issuing of shares and debenture certificate in case of registered companies such as public limited company, and private limited company. You can also go for loans, which can be overdraft or a long-term loan. Government grant and subsidy are also available, and these are not refundable but given with conditions. In addition, a business can use leasing, hire purchase, trade credit, and debts factoring.
Ah, but what will happen if the business borrows money from the bank and fails to pay?
Well, that's a good question, Densia. But you need to understand that before a business is given money, there is always an agreement between the business and the bank. The business is then required to sign a contract, of which will hold that business bound or obliged.
Oh, but Miss, I don't understand. What will happen if the business signs a contract? Will it be given the amount of money they need?
Densha, remember, a contract is for the business to honor the agreement. This means that the business will be given enough money required. However, the money must be paid back with interest. Sometimes the bank or a financier might ask the business to provide them with security. Security means that the business will give the financier an assurance of payment in form of asset in case it fails to pay back the money.
Oh, now I get it. But what about the instance of borrowing money from the government or making use of debentures?
That was my question too. And how about if the business chooses to issue shares? Does it need to pay back the money?
Please remember that issuing of shares, government grants, and subsidy and debentures are all external sources of funds. Issue of shares and debentures are only available to companies that are allowed to sell shares and debentures by law. So, if you own a sole trader or partnership, you cannot make use of this source of fund. Unlike loans, issuing of shares is a permanent capital. This cannot be paid back. No interest to be charged, but it takes time to sell them as they are sometimes sold at higher price. Government grants or subsidy are not required to be paid back, but usually given with some conditions. The debentures, however, are long-term loans, but it has to be paid over a long period of time with fixed interest. Like any other loan, it has to be paid whether a business made profit or not.
Oh, thank you, Miss. I think I understand the lesson now. Please allow me to recap the lesson before I forget what I wanted to say.
Yes, go ahead, Densia.
Well, today I've learned that sources of funds can be obtained from internal or external sources. The internal sources of funds does not need to be paid back, nor interest is charged. But it's always limited. The source includes retained profit, own capital, selling unwanted assets, and running down stock. Whilst the external sources of funds give the business an opportunity to get enough amount of money. Unlike the internal funds, money obtained from external sources, except for the funds from the government, is required to be paid back with interest. However, issuing of shares and debentures is only available to companies, so these sources of fund cannot be used by sole traders and partnerships.
And that brings us at the end of our today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Ms. Awene, the owner and the principal of Ondangwa Private School, want to purchase the school bus for her school. She's planning of using the long-term loans or hire purchase of this initiative. Advise her on the most suitable source of fund she may use. This program was written by Mrs. Shafashike Esther. So until next time, take care.
Up in the sky.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to our third program of this series, Let's Learn Business Studies, which is produced for grade 10 and 11 learners and anybody else who has an interest in business studies. My name is Ms. Kambonde. Today, we will learn about sources of finance again. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important point. Don't forget to take part in our quiz at the end of the program. Before acquiring finance, you need to consider how much money you need and when do you need such money. You need to consider risks involved and what sources of finance will be suitable for your business needs. At the end of this program, you should be able to explain the factors which financial providers such as banks, shareholders, and other institutions will consider before they provide funds.
Oh, Dancy. This other day I was at the bank with my uncle who wanted to acquire a loan for his business. And I must say that I was so surprised at how it is not an easy process for the bank to provide funds to the business. You must prove yourself that you are a trustworthy person or business, or else the banks cannot give the money that is needed.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Macy. My sister told me that banks are not prepared to give money to people just like that.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
Yesterday, we have discussed about methods of source of finance. We discussed the different way of seeking money, either from business itself or from outside of the business. We also discussed the advantages and disadvantages of using internal source of finance and also advantages and disadvantages of using external source of finance.
Miss, I have been curious. What are the factors that the financial providers will consider before providing money to the business?
Oh, Macy, please wait for the teacher to explain.
Good question, Dancia. Today's lesson will focus on the factor that financial provider consider before lending money to the businesses.
Hold up real quick, miss. Who are the financial providers you are referring to?
Macy, the financial provider are those organizations or individuals that lend or invest money into the business. For example, the banks or any investors like shareholders.
Okay, now I really want to know what financiers look at before dishing out their money to businesses.
Okay. There are a number of factors which might influence the financial provider to lend or not to lend out their money. These factors include the following. We start with a business plan. They look at the financial statement, cash flow forecast, security of the loan, credit worth of the owners, experience of the managers, and gearing ratios.
Oh, why do they have to consider all these factors?
Dancia, come on. Financial providers are doing business. So in a simplest answer, they do not want to lose their money. Therefore, before giving out money to anyone or any business, they have to scrutinize the business or even an individual. But in this case, we concentrate on the business.
You are right, Macy. Financial provider will examine the experience, qualification, and competence as well as skills of the managers and the owner of the business to determine whether managers can use the funds and run the business efficiently. When they look at the credit worth of the business, they want to find out if the owner of the business are trustworthy. This is done to avoid giving money to people who cannot use money wisely or those who may not honor the agreements.
Does the financial provider need to consider the financial statements of the borrowers? I do not think it is necessary.
Yes, it's the most important factor to be considered, Macy. It will indicate the financial status of the entity.
That's a very good explanation, Dancia. Financial statements are written records that convey the business financial activity and the financial performance of the business. For example, profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. Considering this statement will help the lenders to know if the business is profitable enough to pay back the loan or not. There will also be a way of the business liability compared to the assets. So, if the business is profitable, lenders are likely to lend money. An equally important factor that can be considered is the gearing ratio of the business. Gearing ratio measures the proportion of total liabilities used in a business compared to equity capital. If the lender finds out that the business operations are more financed by loan capital, then they won't lend money to that business because it will be risky to lend money to such businesses.
Wow. Financial lenders really do consider a lot of things.
Yes. Financial provider can also ask for collaterals or a loan security to be on a safer side. A business plan where they will analyze the cash flow forecast to determine the expected cash inflow and the expected cash outflow.
Wow, interesting. Today I've really learnt a lot. So today I've learned that financial providers consider different factors before they decide to lend or to invest in a business. Some factors that they may look at are as follows. Firstly, the business plan, financial statements, cash flow forecast, security of loan, credit worthy of the owners, experience of the managers, and gearing ratio.
And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Explain 2 factors potential investors should consider before buying shares in a company. This program was written by Mrs. Shafashike. So, until next time, take care.
Up in the sky.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to our 4th program in our series, Let's Learn Business Studies, which is produced for grade 10 and 11 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Ms. Kambonde. Today, we'll learn about why people work, specifically looking at Herzberg theory of motivation. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. And don't forget to take part in our quiz at the end of this program.
Up in the sky.
At the end of this program, you should be able to discuss the extent to which work satisfies individuals' needs with references to motivational theory of Herzberg.
Man, I just not know reasons why people work, honestly.
Oh, are you serious, Macy? People work because they want to get paid. Come on.
Tensia, I cannot believe that people only work to get money.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
Many people think that the only reason why people work is for money. That is not true, because we have people who volunteer to work without any remuneration. This means that people work for various reasons. It's not easy to understand, but there are experts who studies what motivates people to work.
Oh, this is going to be interesting because I was just wondering about that.
Yes, Macy. Let's hear from Miss Shafashike.
Today, we'll discuss what Hesberg said about the extent to which work satisfies individuals' need. He developed two theories called hygiene factors and motivational factors. Both factors plays an important role to satisfy the individual's needs.
What are the hygiene factors?
Hygiene factors are those factors in work that are essential for the employee to execute his or her duties effectively. Those factors does not motivate employees to work hard, but they provide the foundation for motivation. If they are not provided, or if they are taken away, then the employee will fight to have them or to be restored.
What are the example of hygiene factors, Miss?
Densha, hygiene factors include factors such as work condition at workplace, for example, cleanliness, lighting, reasonable minimum wages, and proper breaks. It can also include security, company policies, administration, interpersonal relation at workplace, and others. This factor must be satisfied because the absence of this factor can act as a demotivator to the employees. And if they are present in the business, workers will be encouraged to work hard and efficiency for the business. Hygiene factors are also known as maintenance factors.
Miss, since you have established that hygiene factors do not motivate employees, what really motivates employees according to Hesberg?
Good question, Macy. Please remember, Hesberg has two factors theory, right? There's hygiene factors and motivators factors. Hygiene factors do not motivate workers, but the factors that motivate workers are the ones such as achievements, recognition, responsibility, work itself, and the opportunity for personal growth.
But Miss, how does all these factors motivate employees?
Employees need to be praised by the employers for a job well done. So, praising them even by a word of a mouth, it shows that their effort achievement are recognized. Therefore, they will be motivated to continue doing a greater job for the business. Delegation, which is assigning responsibility to individual employee, make them to feel that they are trusted. So they will enjoy doing their job and work hard. According to Hesberg, the employers require to provide motivational factor to motivate their employees.
Woo! Today I have learned so much. Today I have learned so much. People work for various reasons, such as social needs, job satisfactions, but not only to get money. Hesberg argued that people have two sets of needs: the hygiene or maintenance factors and motivational needs, which are also called motivator factors. Both of the factors may be satisfactory for employees to be fully motivated to carry out the job. The lack of these factors might force an employee to leave the job and seek employment elsewhere.
And that brings us to the end of our today's program. Here is your question for the day. Use the theory of Hesberg to explain to what extent the work will satisfy individuals' need. This program was written by Mrs. Shafashike. So until next time, take care.
Up to the sky.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to our 5th program in our series, Let's Learn Business Studies. This program is produced for grade 10 and grade 11 learners or anybody else who has an interest in business study as a subject. My name is Ms. Kambonde. Today, we'll learn about reasons why individuals work, specifically looking at the motivational theory of F.W. Taylor. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can make notes of important points. Again, as usual, don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of our program. At the end of this program, you should be able to discuss the extent to which work satisfies individual needs with references to motivational theory of F.W. Taylor.
What is this theory of Taylor all about?
I think it has to do with motivation.
Oh yes, you might be true, Densia, since we learned about why people work yesterday.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
Yesterday we have learned about Herzberg motivational theory. Focus more on how work will satisfy individual needs. Like other motivational theorists, Taylor is one of the most important theorists who studied why people work.
Miss, I want to understand, what is Taylor's take on what motivates people to work?
Good question, Macy. I wanted to ask the same question.
Taylor's study focused on the idea that workers are mainly motivated by money, like for financial gain. He believed that workers are motivated mainly by pay. He viewed employees as recipients to obey instruction given to them and do what is said in order to produce as long as they are being paid well.
But Miss, what will make the employees to enjoy their work?
According to Taylor, he concluded that for the employees to enjoy their work, the production process should be divided into small tasks so they can become experts. Employees should then be given appropriate training and tools so they can work as efficiently as possible to complete their task. Workers are then paid according to the number of items they produced in a set period of time called piece rate pay. As a result, workers are encouraged to work hard and maximize their productivity for the business.
Okay, I now grasp the difference between the Taylor and Herzberg theories. Taylor's theory is more on remunerations, while Herzberg believed that workers are motivated by anything other than money. Money is given to the workers in order to enjoy their work.
Oh, good analysis from Macy. Money is an important incentive. Even there are workers who find their job boring. They keep on working as long as they receive remuneration in terms of money.
Wow, that was very informative, Miss. Today I've learned that workers are motivated only by money, according to Taylor. Workers are given one repetitive task so that they can learn to master it. Managers should give orders and closely control workers. And lastly, workers should be paid per item they produce, which is called piece rate pay.
And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Use Taylor and Herzberg motivational theories to explain to what extent the work will satisfy individuals' needs. I repeat again. Use Taylor and Herzberg motivational theories to explain to what extent the work will satisfy individuals' needs. This program was written by Ms. Shafashike. Till next time, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.